Hey everyone, it is Danielle Turchiano, and you are listening to, or maybe even watching on YouTube, Made Possible by Pop Culture, the podcast. This is season 2, episode 2 of the podcast on which I invite guests to come on and share their stories from pop culture's past and present that have helped shape them. And I'm going to be honest and say, I think this is the most special episode, at least to date, because it is my first FYC episode of this podcast. Now, I don't know how closely you follow award season for anything really, but I had a deep history with TV awards for a really long time. It was a big part of my job. Therefore, it was a big part of my life. And right now we are in prime Emmy voting time. Basically, those TV Academy members, they're choosing what's going to win statues come September. And that leads me to today's episode and today's guest, because I'm basically excited to dip a toe back into that water and talk about and promote a show that I love and I feel, needs more recognition, needs some more awards. That is GIRLS5EVA, and therefore my guest is creator and showrunner Meredith Scardino. Now, GIRLS5EVA is in its 3rd season, and it's up for 2 Emmys this year. I want to say that up front. One is Meredith's award specifically, which is Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series for the episode Orlando in season 3. She wrote that with Sam Means, so they're both nominated. And then the other is Original Music and Lyrics, which is Sarah Bareilles' The Medium Time. Because the show is a musical comedy. Maybe I should have said that right off the bat. Maybe you don't know what the show is. And if you don't, then I'm going to say pause the episode here. Pause this podcast right now. Go to Netflix. Season 3 is a Netflix original. Watch the show, come back and listen to us talk about it. I know I normally say that at the end of the episode. I tell you where to go watch the things that we've talked about. I'm saying it right off the bat right now because it is that special. And Meredith is not just known for GIRLS5EVA. She honestly probably has worked on a lot of your favorite comedies, both traditional primetime scripted stuff and late night. Things like Mr. Mayor, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, The Daily Show, The Colbert Report, At Home with Amy Sedaris, even SNL. So I'm really excited to talk with her and learn about some of her earlier comedy influences, because if you know her style now, which you should, because you should have paused this podcast to go watch GIRLS5EVA if you didn't know her before, you'll get to know a lot about how she comes to be this amazing joke writer, this amazing character writer. All right. Well, thank you so much, Meredith, first of all, for joining. This is my first FYC episode of this podcast, and I'm very excited that it's GIRLS5EVA.
Oh, this is exciting. I'm very excited to be here.
I want to ask you, though, like, how does that feel? Like, this is not your first nomination for the show. So does it feel different, especially like season 3 being different streamer? Is there anything that you feel is unique about this time around?
I mean, it feels really sweet to be nominated. I mean, just because there's so many new shows, and to make a splash in your 3rd season is delightful. You know, it's like Peak TV is shrinking. It's popped and now it's shrinking a little bit, but there's just so many. I mean, there's just so much great programming out there. So to be nominated, especially it's particularly gratifying to be nominated by other writers, because you get to vote in your peer group. And so I'm very honored to be nominated. For sure. And it's also wonderful to see Sarah Bareilles get nominated for her song, The Medium Time, which is in the finale of season 3. And it's just so beautiful.
And I will say, I think even beyond the nomination, I think what I'm loving about this season is that it feels like it's permeating culture in a different way. And I don't know if you've noticed this or feel this way, maybe based on seeing who's talking about it on social. But one thing that I will, no offense, spoiler alert, everybody, there's a reference on Selling Sunset that I think is GIRLS5EVA.
Really? What is it?
In the upcoming season, Chelsea, she's in the office and she's like, we have real BPE in here today. And I'm not sure if it's Jason or Brett, because, they're identical. One of them is like, what is that? And she doesn't officially call out the show, but I'm like, I feel like that is Netflix.
That feels... Yeah. Also, I think I've seen it kind of get into the lexicon a little bit. I'm still waiting for Home Alone doorknob to become like, the phrase for a female bone
I mean, we will talk about that because that is from Orlando, which is the episode that's nominated. But I do like to start with the past because
Yes.
chronology and time, although what is time? So I do want to start because if people, and I did tell everybody ahead of this to go and watch the show before they listen to us talk about it, but if people know your writing, they know that one thing that you always deliver is a lot of jokes, like per page, per minute, per episode, etc. And so I want to talk a little bit about like the influences you've had in comedy that maybe inspired that. I know you wanted to talk about one specifically that I feel like inspired that, but maybe you set it up because maybe I'm wrong.
I've always loved jokes. Like, I mean, actually, if you want to go way back, my very first like thing I did as a kid, I'm the youngest in the family, so that's why I'm in television. But when I was a kid, I was on this briefly on this regional television show called the Al Albert Showcase, which was I'm from outside of Philadelphia, and it aired in like New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania. And it was basically this variety show. And this guy, Al Alberts, with like a skinny mic and a toupee, would bring on different acts. Here's the Carroll High School jazz tap squad, and then they do a number or whatever. And then in between, he would have he would do these little interstitials with this group of teeny boppers, they were called. And everyone was age, I want to say like 4 to 6.
Okay.
And we were dressed in formal wear, like big tutus, and the boys wore little tuxedos. And he would kind of chat with us in between, and we would tell jokes. So he would be like, Meredith has a joke for us today. And I'd be like, yeah. And then I'd say something like, where do cows go for entertainment? And he'd be like, I don't know, Meredith, where do they go? And I'd be like, to the movies. And then
were you making these jokes up or you got these out of a book?
This is great question, because here's the thing. I have a distinct memory as a child laying on my parents' bed with my mom and going over jokes, and she had a joke book. And I was like, excuse me, are these not originals? I was offended. I remember I was probably 4 or 5 and being like, we are not the creators of these jokes. What are we doing? Peddling other people's material. So maybe that was the beginning.
Okay. I didn't know about that. So that's not even what I was thinking of. I was thinking of Jack Handey because I was told that was.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. Oh, I thought we were leading up.
We can. I'm just like, I'm so thrilled to hear that because I had no idea. I grew up in New York, and I don't know if we got that show.
You didn't get the show.
I didn't watch it. So
you didn't
get it. Yeah.
And I was only on it like 5 times, or maybe even less, even fewer. But yeah, as a kid, I watched so much TV, and no one cared. And I loved like Pee Wee Herman. I loved SNL. I like devoured absurdist stuff. Like I liked things that were absurd. And so, when I was thinking, I got an email like, oh, who are some of your early influences? And Jack Handey popped into my head very quickly because I don't know if all your listeners
I was going to ask
know about Jack
Handey. I want you to set up where you learned about him, because I learned about him from Saturday Night Live, but like
me too.
Okay. Because he's done other things before that. He worked with Steve Martin. He worked for a newspaper, but like that was outside of my realm.
Yeah, I was definitely like taking in the pop culture that everybody else was. I was not doing like deep dives or anything when I was, 12. But yeah, I loved SNL. I was just like, it felt exciting to stay up late and watch it. I also loved all the reruns that I would see like on like Nick at Night or whatever. And Gilda Radner era and all that stuff. I loved all of it. And but Jack Handey, I had all the books. I even found one of the books, this is Deeper Thoughts. I had 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I remember the original.
There's Deep Thoughts, Deeper Thoughts, and then there's like Fuzzy Memories and whatever. But basically, yeah, I first saw the Deep Thoughts on on SNL, whereas basically they would just do these like quick interstitials where they go, and now Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey. And it was this really soothing kind of Zen-like voice that would tell you a deep thought. And they always took like a hard left turn. And I think it was the first time I was like, oh, I love like an unreliable narrator.
Mm.
You know, someone you're supposed to trust and then is not trustworthy. Like I just love that. And so I just remember being a kid, I mean, maybe like an early teen, and just having all these books and just like cracking up to them in my room, like alone.
Yeah.
or maybe with some friends.
I was going to ask
Killed
you if you could
me.
pick a favorite, but
Oh,
I was
okay,
like,
I'll
it's
pick.
kind of hard to
Okay.
remember them. I would imagine 'cause I don't remember. all
I
the
just
ones
looked it
saw.
up because it's from the original book, but I could not find that book this morning. It was driving me insane. I don't know where it is. I have to reorder it. Anyway, this one was the one that I remember dying laughing over. As I bit into the nectarine, it had a crisp juiciness about it that was very pleasurable until I realized it wasn't a nectarine at all, but a human head.
I don't remember that one at all. I don't know.
Remember that one?
I don't. So you said it was from a book, so I don't know. If
No,
it
it was
on
on
SNL.
TV too.
It was definitely okay.
I'm pretty sure that one
Okay.
made the air. The other, like, I have a bunch of favorite ones. I'll read you a few.
Yes, please, because I would say I want to know if I'm curious if any of the ones that you're picking or there's like one that sticks out to me that I still remember to this day. And
I want to hear yours.
I want
What
to
is
know
it?
if it's the same. So you go first.
Okay, I'll read you a few that I like, and then
Okay.
you can always cut these if you.
Oh, I'm not going to
if
cut
I read
anything.
too many. If I read too many, I mean, I would say there's nothing to cut.
Right.
But okay. Anytime I see something screech across a room and latch onto someone's neck, and the guy screams and tries to get it off, I have to laugh because what is that thing? That one always.
That's good.
That's a good one. All right.
I also like that you're going for the darker ones because I will say the one.
Oh, I love all
stuck
the
to
darker
me-
ones.
Yeah, that was the one that stuck out to me, and I don't remember it verbatim. I don't have it in front of me, but it was the one where he's talking about his urges essentially, and like when he wants to murder someone, instead he just rings the doorbell and leaves like a jack-o'-lantern with a knife in the head, and he feels better, but no one got hurt. I was like, that really spoke to me as an angry young child.
There's one yeah, I love the dark ones too. There's one that had a pumpkin in it that made me laugh this morning when I was rereading these. Let me try to find it. It was about war.
Oh,
Hold please.
pumpkin about war.
Okay, here it is.
Okay.
If you're in a war, instead of throwing a hand grenade at some guys, throw one of those little baby type pumpkins. Maybe it'll make everyone think about how crazy war is. And while they're thinking, you can throw a real grenade.
Oh, that's good.
It's a good one.
You said, you were early teens watching this, reading these books. At that point, were you already thinking about writing comedically? Because I feel like this has to influence the way that you're writing.
Yeah, like my first class I ever took outside of school was a cartooning class. And so we would, I loved cartoons. I loved single panel cartoons. I used to love like the funny pages. And I loved The Far Side. I had like books of Charles Addams, the Addams Family, the guy that created Addams Family, like his old New Yorker cartoons that were so funny. So I loved that, like those quick jokes. So I even, when I was in third grade or something, my mom used to take me to Harcum Junior College on the weekends, and I would take this cartooning class. And so yeah, I always really liked jokes, like from a very young age. And then and I remember also in high school there were a couple friends of mine. We used to make top 10 lists, like in history class.
Nice.
We'd be writing them during, just trying to make each other laugh. So I always it wasn't something that I ever thought it would be my career. I didn't know how, because I didn't even really know about comedy writers, to be honest. I don't know. It really wasn't until I moved to New York that I was like, oh, there's all these people doing improv. There's all these people. There's all these shows. You can write for the shows. You can write packets. You can try to get on there. The only game in town I knew of was really SNL. for
To be
that.
honest, I would have thought you would have tried to write a joke book after your experience, not wanting to take jokes out of someone else's book. I mean, there's humor in that, but then I
Yeah.
guess other people are taking your jokes and like, what good is that?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the reason I asked though about, how old and how it influenced the comedy is because it feels like if you're influenced by his hard lefts that he's making in his jokes, how dark did you want your comedy to get is my question. Like, how were you internalizing that part of him and comparing it to your own style?
That's a good question. I always have liked sort of the macabre stuff. Like right after I graduated from college, I got a job writing. I like entered a contest, I think, and won for some women's magazine that like in grocery stores. It was, the kind of magazine that's
Yeah.
kind of half newspaper.
Mhm.
And they needed someone to write captions for cartoons. And I was like, I can draw them too, because I went to art school. I was like, I can draw
Nice.
them too. They're like, well, no, thanks. And so I wrote jokes for that. And I remember getting this letter from them that were like, we really like your jokes. They're really, really funny. Can you stop sending us really macabre stuff about people losing limbs as
Aw.
what or like what all these things that all these themes that I kind of in like a Charles Adamsy
Mm.
way that I would be using as part of the as just part of the single panel joke.
Yeah.
And I wish I still had that, because I wasn't doing like cutesy
Right.
jokes. Although I did have one. I think the only one of the ones I got in was like, it was like a married couple on a plane, and they ask uh people that are already sitting down, like, I'm so sorry, but is there any way like you could move seats so we could sit apart? Like that was I remember them really liking that joke.
That's
Like,
good.
okay,
Yeah.
that's a fine like New
Yeah.
Yorker-esque, but women's magazine grocery store
Right. Right.
version.
Huh.
But yeah,
And then, I mean, obviously you worked on Saturday Night Live, but you worked on
I
it
did.
after he left.
I did. I worked between seasons of Kimmy Schmidt. I heard they needed some help over at Weekend Update.
Mm.
And so Tina Fey very nicely recommended me to Lorne. And so I went over there. It was like, I think the first year that Che and Jost were
Oh,
hosting. And so I like helped out for a couple months between seasons. It was really nice to kind of peek behind the curtain as I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of the show. But no, I've never met Jack Handey.
No,
Although
I was going to
Jen
ask if you wanted to
Spira,
bring it back, like
do
to
you know who
try to do your
oh my
version
God.
of it when you were
no, I would
there.
never touch greatness like that. Are you kidding me? I would never try to, redo it and ruin it. But Jen Spira, who's a writer that worked at The Late Show, and she also did some punch up on Girls5EVA last season. She's really funny, and she knows Jack Handey. And I was like, I will fly with you to meet him. I think he lives in St. Louis. I'm like, what? We were talking about doing that during the strike, and then it never happened.
I mean, it
But
still could happen.
yeah, it still could happen. I'll meet
There's,
him someday,
yeah.
maybe.
I mean, he'll hear this and then he'll go, oh, maybe I shouldn't meet her. She loves me too much.
Sounds crazy.
No,
She
not
likes
at
me
all.
too much.
You're making a lot of great points and great references to your macabre humor, but Girls5EVA, I think, is lighter and is more optimistic and doesn't.
Oh yeah.
It feels like a real evolution from these early things you're talking about. Obviously, it's not like you jumped from one to the other, but I am curious about, setting out to create Girls5EVA in this very bubblegum world of pop music, but in today's world of like, oh, we see the mistakes of past pop music, how you initially wanted to balance those things, the darkness and the beauty.
Yeah, I mean, well, I had always worked on I feel like I had experience working on shows that tackled everything. At the Colbert Report, we took in the news, and no matter what it's about, you're trying to find a way to satirize it and make points and also make comedy.
Mhm.
And so I felt comfortable with like all kinds of subject matters, no matter what. It's like, because I do believe in like comedy often tells the truth. So no matter what that is. And it Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, I mean, there's like certainly quite the story there of a kidnap survivor is, you know, you don't want to ever, you know, treat that with anything but love and kindness and never punch down on any victims or anything like that. But you're also talking about, you know, true things. So, you know, finding that balance, I think I had worked with, you know, Colbert and Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who were just really wonderful at handling like all kinds of subject matter. And so I felt like when I came up with this idea, there is like there's a darkness under there of, you know, the disposable pop stars that were just chewed up and spit out, and their mental health was almost never prioritized. And I mean, all that stuff and all those
And
things
we
are
didn't talk
there.
about
And
it.
sexism, misogyny, I mean, it's all under there. But yes, there is a joy to the show that I think is really palpable when you watch it. And so much of that has to do with the chemistry of the cast and how much they love each other and how much affection that we all have for any woman that kind of has gone through this. I mean, I feel so connected to a lot of those stories, even though I'm not, you know, I'm not a pop star, but I just think there's certain universal things, being like of a certain age and living through the aughts and all that you can just kind of internalize and bring and help tell those stories. And there's a positivity, but there's always still like some gunk under there. I mean, there's controlling manager, whatever it is, you're making fun of and trying to I don't know, help get those stories out there because they feel real. I mean, they feel real, and it's nice to see those represented on screen. I really wanted to write a show where the main cast was all female and each person was very different. And, you know, also in the kind of around 40 age group. I just wanted to write that stuff. So, and then the pop element of it kind of came into the mix when I saw a story about the Spice Girls reuniting without Posh. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What if there was what is it like for all the one-hit wonders that, you know, had a blip and then had to kind of get their life back together? And what does that look like?
I will just say that the Spice Girls were more than a one-hit wonder.
I'm not comparing GIRLS5EVA to Spice Girls.
Okay.
Spice Girls.
They had like at least two.
No. Okay. Spice Girls are what GIRLS5EVA aspired to be and were created by this manager hoping they were the Spice Girls. They did not become the Spice Girls.
Right.
I mean, for every Spice Girls, there's a gazillion groups that didn't make it, you know, or made it for a blink of an eye. So I was interested in the ones that kind of didn't fully make it. And what does that look like? Because that's more likely the case than to be this like super mega group that is still fascinating forever.
Right. And I think a fan also, of like the time, like you mentioned, like the aughts, like it was such a specific time in everything, in music, in fashion, in what we chose to talk about in the media and what we chose to ignore in the media. Like Orlando, the episode you're nominated for, has so many of those references, like not just in the important emotional story of Dawn realizing like, oh, this song that we created wasn't so great, but like the individual things, Orbits, Dunkaroos, Home Alone doorknob, like I don't know if you can really like the anatomy of this script. I don't know if you can really like distill it down to the what comes first with those references. But like what I want to know kind of is once you have that story of we know they want to, they're going to play this birthday party for this fan who loved their music, and Dawn is going to be a little uncomfortable about it because she doesn't still love that music. how do you then work out how much of that stuff to pepper it with, real and fake, in terms of references? Because you want there to be a lot of these jokes, but you don't want to overtake the emotionality of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're always trying to find the balance where you're you're always making sure to serve the story. So it felt like fertile territory to that during this Girls5EVA's tour, they'd have to kind of take one of these money gigs that was all about nostalgia, and no one wants to hear their new stuff. And it's a common thing people do all the time. Play for billionaires somewhere, maybe people that aren't that great. Like there's a long run of all the people who have played for the Gaddafis.
Right.
So this is kind of a version of them just taking the money and holding your nose and doing it. And it felt fertile. Yeah. And then we had this idea of like, oh, it's, this, there's a lot of acts there because it's this, 37-year-old woman who's having her birthday party, and she's just like, I want all my posters from when I was a teenager to come to life and they'll be brought to life by money. So there's a real Monet, there's all these things that were on her wall are there in person. Rebecca Lobo, Zeke from California High, who was like it's kind of a 90210
And I have
knockoff,
to, I mean,
hot guy who's now like in his 80s because he was 50 when he was on that show.
Was he always going to be Zeke, like a fictional person, or were some of the fictional people maybe originally going to be other cameos?
Oh, Zeke was always Zeke.
Okay.
Because the comic, escalation of those guys is that is incredibly ancient, as the sands of time have passed, because he was in his 50s when he was playing a high schooler. Right. I recently learned that Darren Star, who made 90210, was only 28 when he made that show. And I was like, he was younger than I think most of the principal cast who were playing high schoolers. But you're always going story first, plus whatever you think is funny. We also had we had a puppet in there at one point. I think his name was like Glorbo. He was from a fake Muppets kind of show, and we had him aging in real time and being a real bastard.
Nice.
And we had that in the table draft, I think, and then we pulled it back because there was just like too much in the bag. There's just too much, and you need to like take some accessories off to make sure the story comes through. But it's pretty easy when when you lived through late 90s Y2K, you remember all these things. So they kind of just like come back to you and find their way into the script. But also sometimes there are solutions, like just the show's quite an ambitious show for our shoot schedule, because you have flashbacks, you have performances, you have lots of hair and makeup changes. So for a sitcom, that's a lot of extra elements that a lot of shows don't have. And so sometimes when you're doing a flashback, you're like, okay, now we need to change everybody over into all these different looks, and it takes like so much time. So you have to be creative. And somebody came up with the idea of, oh, let's just go back. Why don't we see like a snippet of their old music on a hit clip?
So, I got to say that was my favorite, because I randomly was talking about those recently, and then your episode came out and I was like, see, it's still in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, it's in the zeitgeist. So I actually didn't know of hit clips. I think was it John Mahone? I forget which one of our writers suggested it. I think it was John Mahone, super funny guy. But yeah, and then looking back, I'm like, oh, I kind of remember those, the keychain little boombox, and you put in like the tiny snippet. And so that saves, how much time that saves, just to be like, all you need is a extra a couple frames, who has it on her belt loop, and then just presses play, and then you just need the audio of the old things, instead of literally making a music video set and getting all the actors and changing everybody over. So you have to make decisions like that, but sometimes they're little fruitful thing, little funny.
I was gonna say, because that's fascinating, because that was like the first thing in that episode where I was like, oh, this episode is going to be peppered with this stuff.
Yes.
And it was, and to hear you say like, oh, it was because of this practical reason, I was like, well, you know what? It works so well.
That's always the case, though. It's like there's so many things that you run up against that then you come up with fun solutions for that you're like, oh, well, maybe that was better than the original. So
Yeah.
good.
So because you pointed this out already, I did want to talk about this. So the theme for this birthday party is my posters come to life.
Yes.
So I want to talk about what were your posters when you were younger, whatever age range that if you had a party nostalgic wise, you would want to come to life.
Okay, what did I have on my wall? I had a like I think like a public domain gymnastics poster. Like it was not of an Olympian I had ever heard of, but it just said it was a girl on a beam doing like a back walkover, I believe, and it just said Olympiad. I was a gymnast.
Okay.
So that was on my wall. I had a church lady poster
from
on
SNL?
my wall from SNL.
Oh, nice.
I had that on my wall. I had like, you know, those collages you make your friends. There's like you cut stuff out from like 17 magazine. It's just like,
Yeah,
wow,
like
orgasm. Like
pre-vision board.
Yeah. Like friendship collages. Anyway, I had one of those my friend Kathy Felcher made me. Oh, my parents, I was in a play when I was a kid. It was a regional theater play. I played Gretel on The Sound of Music, with everyone playing the different ages. Like it was, you know, it was just, you know, local theater. And my parents had like a real poster made to make it seem like I was a star.
That's
like
really cute.
Starring Meredith Scardino. So
that's really cute. Okay, those are good. I mean,
yeah,
I
don't
okay.
Know. I mean, I didn't have any rock star. I didn't have any.
I don't know how that would work at a party, like random.
No,
you'd have to get like an actual gymnast, like Carrie Strug or Simone Biles.
Exactly.
Okay. Those are pretty good. I thought
I did love gymnasts.
Yeah.
Home Alone. No, I didn't have.
All right.
That's sorry.
Where did that come from though? The Home Alone doorknob song and the idea and like her whole riff, because that is one of the more specific jokes / songs.
I feel like sometimes I think there's a guy at Colbert that I used to work with. We used to call it mouth brain, where your mouth talks and never runs anything by your brain. And so I feel like that pitch was very mouth brain of me, where we were talking about trying to create this character of Torque, who is literally the embodiment of like the sexiest, most attractive kind of like Tyrese, like model dancer, cologner, I think it says on the poster. And so we wanted him to be like super sexy and just tempt the hell out of Wiki on the road. And you know, she's in this nice stable relationship with this lunch lord which is the masculine version of lunch lady.
Yes,
he's a middle school lunch lord. And so she's in this great relationship. It's the first time she's been on the road. And of course she's going to get tempted. So I think I was just like talking in the writer's room. And I just said, you know, he just gives her like a Home Alone doorknob. I mean, maybe we'll change that later, but whatever. That's like, just to give you an evocative image.
Sure. Okay.
And then we're like, maybe I think Robert was like, maybe we don't change that. Maybe we don't change that. And then, so then we just started as a shorthand for, you know, female arousal, calling it a Home Alone doorknob. And then we were getting to the scene where where Wiki gets permission to kind of be with this guy. And, it felt natural to just hear the song Home Alone doorknob. And that also felt whispered by an angel or like went from just out of the mouth. Like no brain involved. We're just like, you know, sexy and peshy rhyme and all that stuff.
That's luck.
It just felt, it was very fertile. It felt very fertile. And so, yeah, that's how that came about. Oh, there's your dog.
Oh yes. If anyone's watching on YouTube, Archie has made his appearance. He's going to go.
Hey, Archie.
He's going to go sit under the table.
Hey, cute dog. How old's your dog?
A little over 2. Speaking of, I know I mentioned earlier BP. I did try to redo the music video, Big Puppy Energy with him. I only got like 30 seconds in and was like, I can't do anymore. But I might revisit it. It's on his
I would like to see
Instagram.
that. I
Yeah,
would like to see that.
I will send it to you. It's on his
Okay.
Instagram and like it needs more views. But also I was like nervous that I was gonna get flagged for copyright infringement.
No,
So
it's
I was
fine.
like, maybe I shouldn't do it.
I have a long running copyright feud
Yeah.
thing going on Instagram where
Oh no.
basically I have this video. Uh, I have an amazing dog named Willie who I used to bring to work with me at Colbert and at Kimmy Schmidt.
Mhm.
And I think it was the last day of filming of the regular season in Kimmy Schmidt. There wasn't, or there's just like not much happening around the office. And so we made this video. We always talked about how she looks like such a beautiful woman from behind. And so we made this video of her sitting at a reception desk and being shot from behind. I put like a jean jacket on an upside down hanger. So it looks like she's wearing a cool jacket from behind. And it's all these different guys walking in, including like Mike Carlson, who was on Kimmy Schmidt, being like seeing her and just being like wowed. And then being like, and then I made a video and it's all cut to the Isley Brothers song, Who's That Lady?
Amazing.
So then at the end, like she turns around, you realize it's a
her.
dog. And anyway,
Oh God, that's
and
amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. But so I put it on Instagram and it immediately gets flagged for copyright infringement because I don't own the rights to Who's That Lady. But there's a dispute button.
Oh, that doesn't
So
do anything.
No, here's what it does. So if you press dispute and you say, here's what I would say, listen, I know I do not own the rights to Who's That Lady, but I think Sony Music and the Isley Brothers, the estate would agree. There is no other song that can truly score a video of my stunningly gorgeous dog being mistaken for a beautiful woman from behind than the Isley Brothers, Who's That Lady? I'll meet you in court. I will talk to you about it. I'll get on the phone, whatever you need. And then I press dispute and then it lets you keep showing the video for 3 months or whatever during the dispute until it gets rejected again. So for maybe like 8 years now, 6 years, I have been every 3 months sending the same dispute. We're back here again. But who can I talk to?
So here's
there
the
is
thing.
no other song.
No, there is no other song. I'm not disputing that with you.
Yeah.
But if you go to the audio now that Instagram has a music library, now you might be able to find that song in their library. And if you just use their version of it, it won't flag. My problem was that I was changing one of your lyrics to Big Puppy Energy. So I couldn't use anything.
No, but then I think you're like fine under parody law.
I mean, I was going to say maybe parody, but I was like, I don't know. I didn't want to, I don't have a good lawyer. I don't have any money. So I didn't want to get into it. We'll see.
You could sell those castles behind you for the legal fees.
How dare you? No, I mean, they're not actually worth much. It's Lego. They're in every Lego store. Okay. Go back to GIRLS5EVA. Obviously, season 3, there's a big arc about them they're on tour. And there's a big arc outside of this party that they're playing they're going to eventually play Madison Square Garden. Radio City. Sorry, I always do that. I'm from New York and I always do that. Radio City.
I get it. Both
it's iconic. Not. People from New York are going to be yelling at me. It's fine. So I'm curious from your like writing, producing standpoint of view, what's harder to do? Is it harder to do I mean, I don't know if I should spoil the ending of the season. I feel like by now everyone should have watched it. But like, you're doing this big production, this big show, effectively in an empty theater. Is that harder to do than a smaller show with a lot of extras in a like bar venue?
It's like, I think you're looking for the emotional impact of the scene. So like, what I've found over the years in some ways when you're shooting live music, a lot of times the audience reaction is great and everything and it adds a lot, but what you're really with are the actors and the musicians. And so like I saw David Byrne's Stop Making Sense when they re-released it. And that, if you watch that concert film, which is amazing, it's like almost entirely of the group that, they're playing for however many people, but you're with them and you're caring about them. And so I think like an empty venue is not, I mean, comedically, it's funny to see them being like, "What's up, New York?"
Right.
And then you hear the voice, Gloria's voice echo, "New York, New York, New York," because no one's there except for a handful of, ushers and like a couple friends and family.
And those two guys
So
that didn't know what they
that's
were
funny.
buying.
But then I found myself like when we were in the cut, there was a lot of the first cut that came back, there was a lot of audience cutting to the audience, cutting to no one, and I'm like, at this point, what you want to see is them having the show of their lives. And you want to be with them, and you want to, you can like undercut it every now and then with like empty seats, or like just one usher in the audience enjoying it, or the two Goldman Sachs guys that paid $9,000 for StubHub tickets because they were expensive and don't understand what the show is.
I hope they at least got a t-shirt. I will say that.
Yeah. But really, you're like, I find that you want to be like on a Steadicam shot on stage, up in their faces and seeing the like joy on their faces. Like that's where, and you want to see them sing. So I feel like no matter what we're shooting, whether it's a small bar scene, whether it's Radio City, whether it's even, we shot at Terminal 5, a show that had a lot of people, although, we were always up against like, how many extras can we have with COVID protocols and all that. I always feel like my note is always like, let's get with them more on stage, more on their faces. Like you're really with, because it's their story. And so no matter what, I'm always just like, let's get up there, see them.
Yeah. I mean, I think also just to get up there to see them, to see like, they're really singing. Like, obviously there's tracks, but like, these actors' voices, you're not dubbing them, they're talented in ways that a lot of other people on TV right now are not being asked to be challenged. So I feel like let's show that off and be like, you're doing something extra here.
Yeah. We did do a lot of live singing. We certainly like had a track sometimes and juiced it, in post and stuff like that. But often, so much of the show is really them singing on set, a lot of it. Yeah. Which is always, it was kind of, if you have the time to do it, which we almost never did, but when we did make time to do it, it was, we did a lot of it, and there's some kind of extra little something there that feels so real and nice to see, because they're all so talented.
That's good to know, because I will say that I am the jerk that I watch those scenes and I'm like staring at everyone's mouths to be like, does it match up perfectly? How did they do in their audio mixing and their syncing? Like, well, well,
I always like to try to get them to sing live, because something happens whenever choreography is introduced to the mix, where like, if you have a track, some people forget to move their mouths at the same time. I mean, and so you're like, all right, you got the steps down, but now I can't use the shot because your mouth isn't
right. It's true. I mean, it's a lot. That's the thing. Is like, I mean, Sarah obviously is I would argue, a performer first in terms of singer-songwriter first before actor. But like, I feel like for everybody, and maybe Renee is even split. I don't know. I don't know them well enough, but I feel like for Busy and Paula, like your actor brain is working differently. And so it might take you a minute sometimes to like remember to do both, and to,
it's hard. I mean, it's hard to, I'm always impressed with them. Like even in the, I remember in the Fort Worth first episode of the year, our choreographer, Sarah Jenkins, wonderful choreographer, she was like, I'm going to teach them a line dance. And, you're already behind. And like, the first thing to go in my head is always like, we can always just like lose some choreography. Like we don't, because we're always short on time, as much as I love to have it. And she's like, just give me 5 minutes or whatever. I'm like, 5 minutes? You're gonna teach them a line dance in 5 minutes? And she did.
I was gonna say, but do you know why? Because I feel like we all had to learn line dancing in elementary school. It was like a gym
I was
class. Were you
so
in that? I had to do
impressed.
that.
You had to do line. I did not have
Yeah, and
that.
so like that stuff sticks with you. It's like in your formative years, and I don't like country music. No offense to those musicians, they're talented. It's just not my thing. But to this day, I can hear if I hear the beat, I can do the line dance because
Oh,
like
I had to do a
just
line dance in 8th grade. You're right.
oh, I don't know
Forgot
what
about
it
that.
was about. Maybe it was where we like East Coast public schools.
Yeah.
I went to New York City public school. Like
Yeah.
it was just one of it's not even elective. It's just the mandatory gym class.
Mandatory country line dancing credit we all had to
Yeah.
get.
Yeah. Very
That's
strange.
funny.
I don't know. I also, we have to talk a little bit about bringing Thomas on this season, if that's okay, because
Of course. I
I
love Thomas
mean,
Doherty.
I want to talk a little bit about like the inspiration behind the character, but also just, I loved so much that friendship with Gloria. Like
Oh,
that
wasn't
she
that
was
so
so
nice?
naive to know that he's this huge pop star, like that he actually was getting away with it. And then how far she would go for him at the end to
Mm-hmm.
like, but even when it hurt the group. And I will say, I think one of my favorite moments this season was that that 5 minute, 10 minute fight that they had on that morning show after she helped him fake his death, and they were just like talking around it and like all mad at each other. So first walk us through a little bit about like the inspiration for bringing on that type of character when you know that like it's going to change the dynamic when they do that song, when they're not using him in a bad way, but like having him be involved to help them get a little bit more famous.
Yeah, it's always like if you have a group pining for a thing, they want to be the biggest star in the world. They want to be back on top, and I mean, of course they deserve to be, but it's interesting for them to meet who's doing that. What is it like if they run into that person? Is the real life experience what they thought it would be? It felt like a good test of Gloria's friendship with him, to meet him under different circumstances where she thinks he's just a trucker and they're both going to get like familiar food at a chain restaurant called Macaroni Rascals. And then only later does she realize who he is because she can't memorize men's faces. um, and, and then realize like, oh, we're no different than everyone else who wants something from this guy, when really the reason why he's even attracted to us is because we're kind of playing basements, we're doing the thing that he misses, staying up in a hotel room making music out of anything can be music, like whatever, just the making of the thing. And so it felt like a good test of his friendship with Gloria, and in this season we see her kind of bringing every animal the van hit, like
Yes.
into the van, nursing it back to life, like, which is something like Paula has such a big, empathetic, huge heart, and takes in a lot of older animals that might have been left at a shelter or something like that, or she's found so many birds over the years that need help. I think Lauren said one time she was like giving mouth to mouth to a bird, which or whatever. Like she I don't think she did, but
Okay.
like that's a story. But she would,
Right,
what I
right.
mean?
Like that's the level she would go to.
Yes. And so it just felt like, okay, well, she sees this guy as a wounded animal who needs help, and so she helps him in an absurd way, of course, but there's real emotion behind it. And so like it felt like an interesting conversation to have about what does fame how does fame corrupt? What does it do to you? I mean, it doesn't do it to everybody. Some people have amazing boundaries or a great support system or whatever it is. It's not an indictment of fame, entirely or anything like that. But for this guy, he was having a hard time and feeling like, oh, you guys are just like everybody else that wants something from me. And can you be my friend? And Gloria being like, yes, even if it costs us a lot.
Right.
So,
But
yeah,
I think it also speaks really well to like the flip side of when Dawn meets Richard Kind and learns about
yes,
medium time. It's like, it's that extension of that conversation around like, well, how famous do you really want to be? Like we've seen what it did to this guy over here.
Absolutely.
Now we're seeing Richard, who I would argue is famous, but certainly famous in a different way. And like being able to tie that all together to like, again, teach them kind of a lesson about like this thing that you are chasing. And is it really the valuable?
Or where is the happiness in the thing that you love? You know what I mean? Like, is it being fawned over? Maybe not. Like it's the thing. It's like they want to have their voices heard and sing and perform, and they love that being up there and connecting with people and all of that. But does it have to necessarily be that they take over the world? You know, I often feel like, I don't know about you, like when I think, I mean, I'm not famous, but when I think about the things that I like the most, why I'm in comedy, what I love, it's like being in a writer's room, you know, even in the beginning of my career, like when I first was getting started with, I had a writing partner named Ben Tischler, who's a producer. Now he's awesome. And he, like, we would be up till like 2 a.m, just coming up with sketches, writing a sketch packet, like dying laughing. Like that to me is the most fun part. I mean, obviously I want to get paid,
right?
And I want to be able to like someday own an apartment and like all this stuff. I want to live.
Can own one,
be rewarded,
but maybe not in New York.
New York is hard, but yeah, like that's the kind of that's always like the most fun or that thing. So it feels like, it felt like they're, you know, and Richard Kind, I've worked with on Kimmy Schmidt, and he's just like such a solid, hilarious dude who literally his IMDb page is longer than a wizard's beard to
and the thing is,
in the show. Yeah. And
you shot that.
That's it. That's what you want. You want to work and you want to do the thing, and you don't want the other BS to get caught up in it, you know?
I mean, you shot that scene with Richard outside on the street in Manhattan, and I was like, I wonder like what other show he was filming at the same time that they just pulled him outside of that. He also did Only Murders season 4. He's in everything. He did the last season of Evil. I was like, what? It's crazy to me. Which is great. He's great, but
I love him.
Speaking of Dawn, though, going back to Orlando really quick, because I forgot to ask you this, there is that flashback with Dawn and her terrible rap dance. And I would love to know if that had any specific origin, because I'm going to say that after watching the Olympics, it kind of reminded me a little bit of
Reagan.
Yeah, I know it obviously didn't have that as an origin, but
no, it's that video, that lady in the blue outfit saying like, "This is hip hop." Have you seen?
I don't know that.
Look up "This is hip hop." I think that's what it's called.
Okay,
and it's like a pretty one-to-one. It's a tutorial on hip hop.
Okay, so I'm just out of the loop.
Yeah. You'll see the connection.
Okay, but that tracks. I'm assuming it's a white woman trying to teach hip hop, which
it is, and she's kind of like doing a lot of jazzy stuff.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. I do also, I made a joke earlier about the shirt, but like in all seriousness, are you selling Returnity gear, like tour gear? Because I know Busy had that yard sale and had a few of them for sale, and they went immediately. And I was like, where can we all get our hands on these shirts?
How can you get one? Well, the greatest thing is that one of my love languages is making stupid merch.
I love it.
I know all the people that work at like Rush Order Tees and like all these places where I'm like, I need 60 hats. What I do have that I can give you.
Oh, I meant where can people buy it? Like the audience. I would love it.
I don't know. There's no store.
Okay.
You could probably find one online.
Well, so that was my question, because yes, you can always find bootleg stuff, but I like to point people to official stuff. And I was gonna say, like, we're recording this in August. I live in Los Angeles. It is already 85 degrees in my apartment. Otherwise, I'd be wearing my GIRLS5EVA sweatshirt suit, because I have one from
you have one of those?
Universal like made a merch website in season 1 and sent it to the
Oh, I
press
love
and was
it.
like, choose 4 items. I don't know if I should be promoting this, but it was amazing because it was as if you had gone to a Girls5EVA concert.
Oh,
and
I had that too. Yeah, it was sort of like a limited edition,
yeah.
hey, pick your fan merch.
Yeah. And then
There's
I was
got to
like, you
be
guys should
some
sell
page
this.
somewhere where someone I think they should sell return
Yeah.
date. And then I personally made all these. Here, right, let me just grab one.
Wait,
Hold
did
on.
you make the hats?
The divorced dad sweetlets?
Yeah.
Yes.
You are the one that made the hats? That's
Of course
crazy.
I'm the one who made the hat.
I
Okay.
mean, you have a whole art department, so I don't want to assume anything.
These.
I love it. Yes,
this is why I don't own an apartment, because I buy mostly.
Well, I was going to say
spend a lot of money on
the show could have paid.
stuff
That could have
like
come out of the show's budget. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have seen those online on social. I think Busy also was wearing one.
Yes.
And then
I
like
sent
know
them
you,
to the cast first.
yeah, yeah.
And then I was like, I'm gonna need a lot more of these because I love them.
Well, you know what? Start an Etsy store and just sell them.
This
Sure,
will be
no
my
one at
side
Universal will
hustle.
complain. It'll be
No one,
great.
or Marriott.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Oh,
why it's just an M.
I was like,
'Cause
it's not really,
if you
yeah.
say Marriott, if I print Marriott,
Yeah,
in the
you'll get in
font,
trouble
it's
for
like
that, but
I'll
that's
get a cease
fine.
and desist.
It's fine. And then
And
that
I'm already in court for the Isley Brothers thing, I'm sure. So I get to see them that day too.
yeah, but when you win the Isley Brothers, you can use those funds toward the next one. Just a never ending cycle.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. So I'm going to make you, I did this in my first episode of the season. I'm going to make you do it too. I want you to pick your favorite child in terms of your favorite song from season 3.
I have to pick the medium time. It's not a comedy song, but
Well, it's the
it's
Emmy
a
nominated
beautiful
one. So
song.
that is
It's
the
the
right
Emmy
answer.
nominated song. Yeah, Emmy nominated song. Sarah Bareilles wrote. I mean, we had talked about the concept of them this message from Richard Kind, and where I think at one point it was sort of toying with it being called choose kindness, like or be kind, and be kind is in there, but then we like the medium time anyway. So but it's just such a beautiful song. It's like her voice, and she did everything. I mean, she wrote the whole song and sent me a demo, and where she sang all the women's harmonies as well for the demo, and it was just so beautifully produced, her demo, and felt so fully formed and gorgeous, and it just felt like magic. So I have to say that one.
I mean,
my runner up, my favorite. It's so hard for me because
I know that's why I was like, I don't know if this is a fair question, but I like to always leave on like a hard stump them question.
Well, I'll just tell you some of my favorites from this season. Home Alone Doorknob.
Obviously.
Fort Worth, the full song really grew on me. I learned so much about Fort Worth.
It was all true because I didn't Google, but I was okay. Because it's amazing how much stuff fits in the rhyme scheme and the tempo that is true. That's the most impressive thing to me, is like you're not forcing a line just for the beat.
No, it's I mean, I had so much extra stuff about like some weird fish you can catch with a permit in their river when the river's not dry. It's called an alligator gar or tar.
Okay. Oh, I've heard of those. I've heard.
They're
like they have crosswords.
Like the body of. They have like an alligator face and the body of like a huge fish. Anyway, I had a lot of other stuff, and I had stuff about like it was allegedly like Bonnie and Clyde kind of hid there for a while. Anyway, cool. But I also really enjoy that song. Inside My Sweater is another song that I think it's just like a bop. Like I just could see it. It feels like a song that should chart to me. It feels like a pop song. I mean, I also love Sweet and Low Daddy. It's hard. It is really hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna Medium Time is my favorite.
Correct. I mean,
correct.
There should be no wrong answers, but also like, it's the Emmy nominated one. This is the FYC episode. Yeah. Correct.
Seriously. Yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming.
I also would love, I mean, come on, we got to get Sarah Bareilles her EGOT. Oh, like, she's got the G. She's got a Grammy.
Yeah.
She's going to get a Tony at some point.
It's a few more days.
I don't know how it hasn't happened yet. Or maybe she's a Tony. Yeah, she's got a lot of, she's gonna win the whole. She's gonna end up there. But
I
I would
mean,
like. I would
it'll take
love
a minute,
to
but
help her get the E.
yeah, I was gonna say it'll take a minute, I think, for the Oscar, only because she's not focused on film right now, but that's okay.
No, but I mean, she could win it for song. She writes a song for the Oscar. Oh,
Oh my
she's
God,
too
yeah. I was
talented
totally
actress.
thinking if she's
Put her,
acting,
put
but
her.
you're
Also,
absolutely
she
right.
should be get put in a movie.
Yes, she
She's
should.
an
I just mean she's
incredible
not right
actor.
now. So if her focus
Yeah.
is elsewhere, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, of course she can get nominated for a song, and Eminem has a Oscar for a
He
song.
does.
Well, yeah, for 8 Mile.
It's a
And
good song.
I automatically always think about acting and writing and directing first for Oscars, but
Yep.
obviously music is very important. So,
Yep.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was very fun.
Of course, we're going to have everybody. Well, everybody who's a voter can go vote, and everybody else can just go onto their social and talk all about Girls 5 Eva so that all the voters see it and then
Yes,
are like,
please.
it's top of mind. All right. Thank you once again to Meredith for coming on Made Possible by Pop Culture. And of course, thank you all for listening and watching and liking and commenting and subscribing and following, et cetera, et cetera. If you are a Television Academy voter, please consider Girls 5 Eva in the Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series and Original Music and Lyrics categories. I can't wait to see what you all choose and what wins come September during that ceremony. And as always, I like to leave you with where to find the things that we talked about so you also can experience them and fall in love with them. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, Girls 5 Eva, all 3 seasons are available on Netflix. We were not talking so long that it's no longer available there, so that's good. And then, of course, we talked about Jack Handey. His books are available wherever you buy books. Amazon's a great option. Also, Deep Thoughts with Jack Handey in classic SNL episodes are available on Peacock in full. But if you're just looking for individual sketches or segments, it might be easier for you to go to their official YouTube page at Saturday Night Live and just search for them there so that you can see some of the ones that Meredith and I talked about, but also some others that we didn't get to. So thank you all once again. This has been Made Possible by Pop Culture Season 2, Episode 2, and I hope you'll stick around for next week because we have another great guest lined up.